Hey, I'm Susanna Lanier, actor and acting coach for over 25 years.
I'm Jess Greenberg, casting director for over 10 years.
We're here to help you navigate this crazy, creative, and sometimes chaotic journey into the film and television world.
We share our insights as to what works.
And invite some pretty spectacular guests to share more ideas to move you on your journey.
So without further ado, let's get into the show.
So this week, our interview is with Nir Gazinski, who is a social media creator and an actor, local Montreal talent, and has been doing it for a long time. And I'm very excited to share the episode with everybody. He shares a lot of tools and tips of how he got started. And what I found was funny about the interview, but the social media sketches that did the best were the ones that were very random. Those were the ones that went viral that he really didn't overthink. And I think that's funny, just how sometimes if you don't overthink, you just throw it out there like throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And you don't know, right, what's going to stick until you try it. Jess and I actually started talking about that. So we want to discuss it today. Is I have a lot of students ask me, what's my casting? And I think that's another thing. You don't know until you try a bunch of stuff. Don't pre-decide what your casting is. So when people ask you, Jess, like, what is my casting? How would you tell them to find that?
Yeah, well, I think obviously it's important to be like very self-aware, but it takes practice and you change. But I think what's really important is to do workshops and to play around with different scenes, record yourself, watch it back, and to narrow in on what sorts of characters, you match with and the energy and what feels right. I think that's really important. And, because the one thing too that Nir said that stuck out to me is he used to put all of his friends in his videos. And it was one of his friends that said, hey, you're doing all this work. Why are you in the background or not even in it? Like, put yourself center stage. And as soon as he did, that's also when the numbers started to grow. It goes back to like also surround yourself with good people who have your best intentions for you, because that was amazing advice that really worked for him. And I think being self-aware and trying different things, seeing what works and trusting other people's opinions of you.
I find that's a really hard balance, because it's like trusting yourself and trusting other people's opinions of you. Because I'll be honest, as an acting coach, I do think some of my students aren't clear of where their strengths really are. I find a lot of actors starting out, they want to go at it for everything. They're like, oh yeah, East Asian, I could do that. Or it's like, no, you're European Canadian. This is, you're Russian. You can't go out for that. Like, or whatever. It's just, and I'm exaggerating obviously, but I found starting out too, it's like, I want to do everything and I can do everything. And I think at the beginning you should go out for everything. And I think your agent should suggest you for everything. But at some point you want to narrow in to what your strength is and work on that. And I mean, we even talked about this in the podcast. I mean, when Jess and I started working together, I was like so happy, because on a personal level, I don't really like reaching out to people and like, please, can you be in my podcast? I want to interview you. When Jess is like, why? This is a great podcast, and I'll reach out to all the talent. So that's kind of her role she plays in our podcast. She reaches out to the talent and the people we're going to interview. And I'm like, of course you would do that. You're a casting director. That's what you do. You cast talent. So that would be very easy for you. But when I said that,
yeah, I was like shocked. I was like, oh my God, I'm so not that person.
But you are, because you're doing it and you do it well.
Apparently. Yeah. And it sort of took someone to like point it out indirectly, like to say, yeah, no, you're good at this. Like you do reach out to people. And I just find, I guess, because yes, it is part of the job, and I am excited about this podcast, and I am excited to reach out to people and have different people on. So there hasn't been any like resistance on my end when I do reach out to people. But on a social side or you know, professionally, I do find like I could be awkward in social settings about like going up to someone and saying hello, or thinking like, oh, they don't know who I am, and like, so I think when there's like intention and purpose, I'm fine, but like socially I'm awkward. So then to hear you say like, oh yeah, like Jess will reach out to anyone, I'm just like, oh my God, do people perceive me as that kind of person? Because that's not how I see myself. So sometimes you do need that outside perspective, be like, no, this is how you come across, because that's also how it will read on the screen too, is that's the energy you're putting out. So I'm happy I'm putting out that kind of energy.
Yes, well, you definitely are. And I think I think the moral of this story, and for me too, I remember starting acting, and every time I did comedy, people were like, oh, you're good at comedy. Like, and I remember when I took class with Jacqueline McClintock back in the day, she's like, it's kind of funny because even when I give you a drama, it's somehow funny. Like, and I was like, oh, and then I started to feel like, yeah, I want to do more comedy. I like comedy.
Yeah.
And now when I get a script that's comedy, I was like, I got this,
Yeah.
you know, because I've been told
That's
that's
your thing.
my strength. I didn't know,
Yeah.
you know, I didn't know now, and to work on my drama to make it less
Right.
silly or whatever it is. Realistically, living in Montreal, we do have to be, we've had plenty of episodes about this, diversification, because there's not that many sitcoms going on in our city that I get to audition for. So we
No.
do have to be open to doing all different sorts of work and working on all different sorts of works. But having an idea of what your hit is, I think will benefit you, and
Yeah.
I think will help you. So when those roles come, you will feel very confident, and you actually won't have to do a whole heck of a lot of work. You'll just be and do the lines,
Right.
and it'll show up. Whereas the other
Yeah.
stuff, you might have to lean in on more of the tools that you pick up from acting class. Um, so you can also play those roles,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's so interesting, because then you also want to find the balance of like not being typecast versus going into the roles that really feel like you. So,
Right.
but that's a whole other conversation. We'll
That's
save
a
it
whole
for
other
another day.
conversation. Well, so yeah, so I look forward. I hope everybody listens in on Thursday. Nir gives us so much good information, and he was just a delight and funny and charming. And you'll hear about the video that got over 2 million views, which I thought was
Yeah.
very exciting. So listen in on
Great.
Thursday. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.